In today's video, I've got the Voca Mutes from McNeill Washburn. What's going on? Josh Brzepka here, and welcome to another midweek edition of Mute Monday. If you're new around here, welcome. Mute Monday is a series where I discuss and demonstrate different trumpet mutes. Today I am very excited to be sharing with you the Voca Mutes, and these are two of the most unusual and interesting mutes that I've ever shared on this channel. Check these out. These don't look like mutes. However, check this out. This is so cool. This is the Voca Classic, and it folds on itself. It's got some snaps in there. You close them up, and then you snap the next one. There's two snaps on there. And then on the inside, it's got these little tabs that come out, all right? And this is your mute. And these sit over the edge of the bell, and this attaches to the bottom, and it's got different slots so you can adjust it. I'm going to take you through all of the different options and permutations, and there's two of them. This is the Voca Classic, and then there's the Voca Vented. And this one right here, you can see it's got holes in it. We're going to do a close-up of both of these in just a second. Now, before I jump into all this video is not sponsored, but Voca did send me both of these mutes so that I could share them with all of you. Now, the story of the Voca mute goes back a couple of years, and trumpeter Andy Washburn started playing with the Charlotte Jazz Orchestra in North Carolina. And when he started playing with the band, he realized that several of the charts called for bucket mute. And he didn't have a bucket mute, so he ordered one, and it arrived, and he fell in love with the sound. He started using it on gigs, but they're really big. They take up a lot of space. They don't fit in the pocket of your case. In fact, many trumpeters, they just don't even bring bucket mutes to gigs. They instead just kind of play into the stand, and that is not the same. So Andy, he fell in love with the sound of the bucket mute, but he saw there was limitations, that trumpeters weren't bringing them to gigs. He didn't think that it was practical enough, so he started thinking, well, what can I do to capture that character of sound, but make it something that people could bring to the gigs that they could always have with them? And that's when he started brainstorming and coming up with ideas that later became the Voca mute. And not long after, he was at his son's soccer practice, and he was thinking to himself, trying to come up with solutions to this bucket mute problem. And he thought, well, what if we took a three-dimensional object and we made it two-dimensional? What if we made it flat? Well, then you have no excuse to not bring it with you, because it can be packed away so easily it'll always be in your case. And that idea where you could take a flat object and then turn it into a cone, that really sparked the idea for the Voca mute. And before the end of the night, he had already started drawing up some schematics. Now, he immediately started making mutes. The first ones were made out of cardboard, and then he tried different materials, and he would make multiple different mutes each day. And he went through this prototyping process, creating nearly 100 mutes in 6 months. Before long, he was working with drafting professionals and early adopters of 3D printing that helped him with these clips. And you'll see these clips, they rotate, and once these arms here were finalized, then they began the patent process. And from beginning to end, until they had their patent and their final product, it was just a year and a half. So they worked really quick, and they came up with a brand new ultra portable mute. Now let's check out this classic version up close. These mutes are made out of a vinyl material from a company in West Virginia that makes vinyl products for mining and the military. So these are very, very strong, and it's got some rivets in it, and it has these plastic arms. Look at that up close. And they adjust so that you can put it on your bell. And there are a couple different ways that you can attach this to be closer and further away. And this classic model right here, I'm going to demonstrate in 3 different configurations. The first one is going to be in the most open position, the furthest slot here. The next one is going to be in the middle position, and then in the closed position, which is the closer position. So you're going to be able to hear how the sound and response and everything changes on this mute based on how you have it set up. Now, as I mentioned, this mute was inspired by the bucket mute, so that's the character sound that they were going after. But this is great. If you take these arms and you put them back inside, well, you can use it as a plunger mute as well. And it's got a little hole there at the end so that it's vented. And I demonstrate this as a plunger mute too. Now, he has another model, and that is the vented model. Now, they released this second model because they wanted a mute that was a little more free-blowing with better intonation in the upper register. I'm going to demonstrate this the same way that I demonstrate the classic, and that is going to be with 3 different positions, with the more open position, and then the middle medium position, and then more closed position. And you're going to be able to hear how the sound, response, how everything changes based on how you have that adjusted. Now, this mute I don't demonstrate as a plunger mute. I find that the venting on it just is a little too open, and to me it doesn't get that wah sound that I really expect out of a plunger mute. All right, I think that's enough talking. Let's hear how these mutes sound. All right, so you've just heard both of these mutes, and what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Really interested to know what you thought. And while you're at it, why don't you hit that like and subscribe? It really makes a very big difference, and it helps me to keep making these videos every single week. Now, starting off with this Voca Classic, I gotta say the whole concept behind this is really neat. I love how this mute, you can just unsnap it, and it's flat. It can fit in your case, super easy to travel with. This is a terrific option if you don't have a lot of space and you need to be able to bring something to get a different effect, particularly the plunger. I just love that you can use this and kind of get that bucket sound as well as that plunger sound. Now, I will say for me, this mute really worked best in the most open position. For me, that's really where I got the sound and the response that worked best for me. This mute, once you start getting higher, you start running into some intonation issues, especially around like a high B flat, B, high C. Going above that, some of those notes can be very, very difficult to lock in and, you know, kind of get them to resonate or be in tune. I was having a bit of a challenge with that, and I think that's why they came up with the vented version, so that once you start going up high, then you're going to be able to have better intonation and a little more security while playing. I will say every single time that I adjusted this mute, when I made it closer and closer into the bell so that it wasn't the most open position, it was, you know, on that next notch and that next notch, I would have to pull my tuning slide out a little bit. So it affects your tuning where the tuning slide is a little bit as you adjust it, but also the closer I got into the bell, the more unstable those high notes became, and it just became a little bit more of a challenge. Depending on what ensembles you're in, you know, it may not be a big issue for you because you may not be playing that much above the staff. For some people, they may look at it and say, well, I'm not going to bring a bucket mute anyway, so this is better than not having one. And certainly if you are traveling and if you always just want to have a backup for a plunger mute, that's what I really dig about this, that you can kind of just have it there, and it's so much better than just using your hand. This is just something you can put it in your case. It is flat, it doesn't take up any space, and I just love the versatility. Just keep in mind it does have those intonation issues as you get above the staff and into the upper register. Now, as far as the other model, the vented version, again, this one I really liked how it played for me and the response the best when it was in its most open position. For me, that really felt like it had the best response overall throughout the registers. This has different intonation issues that you've got to deal with compared with the Classic. Now, the Classic I found as I was getting high up, I was quite flat. This one, actually, I was a little sharp, and that just happens sometimes with certain mutes. You've got to just play them for a while and get comfortable to know how they're going to react and how they're going to respond. And certainly with something like this, with one of these mutes that has got all of these different ways you can adjust it, you're going to want to take the time, get your tuner out, go through the process, see where it lies. All of us, we've got different gear, we've got different trumpets, bell sizes. There's a lot of variables. This is something, it's a little more secure, and if you're going to be playing stuff above the staff, this I would say is a better bet than the Classic. And I dig the vents on this, that more open sound, that more free blowing. But I gotta say, if I was gonna choose between this vented and the Classic, I think I would actually choose the Classic one, just because I can use it as a plunger mute as well. I love that. And it is so cool, after having reviewed mutes for so long, over 130 different mutes that I've reviewed, I'm still getting surprised. I'm still getting a mute like this where it's a flat mute. I mean, this is just so cool. As far as, portability, versatility, this is really a mute you might want to consider. I wouldn't say that as a bucket mute, this is going to give you the most authentic bucket sound. This is the Voca mute, and I wouldn't say that it plays and responds as well as some of the other bucket mutes out there. But how many of you are bringing your bucket mute to the gig consistently? You're leaving it at home because it doesn't fit in your bag. This is a solution, and man, for travel, I'm going to bring this when I travel. You know, this might be a perfect option for those of you that are traveling a lot, that need to bring some type of a mute where, you know, you don't want to practice mute because it's like so stuffy. You know, maybe you can play out a little bit more, but you want to take the edge off. So this is a very cool mute. Very impressed and surprised by the creativity here and, you know, what they were able to do with such a minimalist design to really create a wide palette of sounds that you can use with your trumpet. Now, Andy told me they are working on overhauling their website so that they'll be able to sell direct from their website. Right now, I believe all the sales are going through Amazon, but you can find them on their website as well as their Instagram and Facebook page if you want to find out more information about these mutes. And again, a very big thank you to Voca Mute for sending me these mutes so that I could share them with you on this channel. And I hope that you liked this video and that you found it interesting. If you did, let me know, leave a comment, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe. Really makes a very big difference. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.